Welcome to the channel. In this place, it turns out, a person ceases to be the master of their own destiny. This is the most frightening place on earth. Even its name is frightening. There is a place on the map where the ocean seems to breathe darkness. Where the horizon and the sky merge into one, and navigation instruments go crazy. This place is simply called the Bermuda Triangle. Thousands of kilometers of endless water between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Ships, airplanes, and entire crews have disappeared there. And no one could ever say for sure, why. Over the years, this territory has become a symbol of mysteries. Some claimed, it's all about magnetic anomalies. Others, that portals to other dimensions open there. And some believe that the depths of Bermuda are full of unknown creatures, ready to swallow any ship that dares to cross their domain. But there are two stories that even sailors whisper about. Two stories, similar to each other, like reflections. They happened just 1 year apart. And both ended the same way, with a disappearance without a trace. These planes were called Star Tiger and Star Ariel. Two handsome craft of silver and steel, the pride of British aviation. Experienced pilots, modern navigation systems. And, it would seem, simple routes across the Atlantic. But they became the symbol of fear and mystery that no scientist can fully explain to this day. I want you to imagine a cold January morning in 1948. Fog is slowly lifting on the runway of an Azores airport. A huge four-engine airliner emerges against the background, the Star Tiger. This is not just an airplane. It is the pride of the British airline British South American Airways. The pilots are joking, the technicians are checking the instruments, and the passengers, wrapping themselves in their coats, exchange short phrases. We'll be in Bermuda soon. Just a few hours of flight. None of them know that these hours will be their last. The weather was not the best, strong winds and rain. But Captain Brian McMillan, a pilot with an impeccable reputation, a man who had been through the war and flown in the worst conditions. He has no doubt, they will manage. The plane takes off, and soon communication is confirmed, everything is going according to plan. Pilots of nearby airliners hear his calm voice. Star Tiger at 2,000 feet, course stable. And then, silence. When the plane did not arrive in Bermuda, the search began. For several days, dozens of planes circled over the Atlantic, Navy ships combed the waters mile after mile. But they found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slicks, no bodies. It was as if the plane had dissolved into thin air. This case became the first shadow over the reputation of the Bermuda Triangle. Journalists wrote about a sky trap. Newspapers screamed with headlines, "Airplane disappears in the Devil's Zone." And people began to believe that there really is something in the Atlantic. That takes those who dare to cross its heart. A year passed. January 17, 1949. On the runway of the Bermuda airport stands another plane, the Star Ariel. It looks almost the same as the Star Tiger. Even the crew, partly the same people. And the airline is still the same, British South American Airways. Irony of fate? Or destiny? Nobody knows. On board, 20 people. The weather is perfect. The sky is clear, the wind is light, the sun is bright. This should be one of the easiest flights, from Bermuda to Kingston, Jamaica. Captain John McPhee, a highly experienced pilot, cheerful, calm, confident. He smiles at the technicians before closing the hatch and giving the command, "Takeoff." At 9:42 a.m., the star Ariel leaves the island. Communication is excellent, the instruments are working flawlessly. The radio operator makes a routine note. Course stable. Everything is okay. And then, just like a year ago, silence. No distress signal. No reports of trouble. Nothing. The plane disappears just as suddenly as its predecessor. The same waters. Almost the same route. The same airline. This is no coincidence, many think. It's a curse. The Bermuda Triangle has claimed another victim. When rescue planes arrived in the supposed crash area, the ocean was completely calm. Visibility was perfect. But, no signs. There were no traces even where, by all laws of physics, at least debris or oil slicks should have been floating. The sea was silent. These two disappearances became a turning point. Now the whole world was talking about the Bermuda Triangle. Drawings of a triangle connecting the points, Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, appeared in the newspapers. And people started asking. What is happening there? Are they hiding something? But not everyone believed in mysticism. Some scientists tried to find rational explanations. Radio communication failures, magnetic storms, weather traps. Sudden drops in pressure that could cause an instant loss of control. But all this did not explain the main thing: why not a single trace was ever found. Can the Bermuda Triangle really devour technology and people? Or is it all much simpler and more terrifying, a human error, hidden beneath the ocean's depths? January 1948. The world was just beginning to recover after the war. People once again believed in the miracles of technology, airplanes, transatlantic flights, radio, navigation. It seemed there were no more white spots on the map. But the Atlantic, it does not forgive overconfidence. The morning of January 29 was gray. The sky over the Azores hung low over the earth, the wind driving portions of damp fog from the ocean. On the runway of the Santa Maria base stood the huge Star Tiger airliner, a 4-engine Avro Tudor IV. It looked like a steel whale, ready to cut through the cold air over the Atlantic. The commander of the aircraft was Captain Brian McMillan. A highly experienced pilot, a veteran of the Royal Air Force, a man whom colleagues called a flying compass. He could orient himself even in complete darkness, by the stars and intuition. The crew, 5 people. On board, 25 passengers, among them military personnel, diplomats, engineers. Everyone is smiling. Everyone is confident that they will be in Bermuda by tomorrow. But the weather is capricious. The wind is getting stronger, the temperature is dropping. The dispatchers report, the route is possible, but we advise flying low, at 2,000 feet, to avoid headwinds. McMillan agrees. He makes the decision to fly low, closer to the ocean, to save fuel and avoid turbulence. The plane takes off. The huge propellers roar, burning through the fog. For a moment, Star Tiger disappears from view, and then reappears, soaring into the gray sky, dissolving in the clouds. The clocks at the base show 15:34. The flight has begun. The first stage passes calmly. Radio communication is stable, the course is clear. But soon the temperature in the cabin drops. The heating is working intermittently. The crew is forced to wrap themselves in cloaks to keep from freezing. At an altitude of 2,000 feet, moisture accumulates on the windows, the instruments sweat, the needles tremble. Night is approaching. It's getting darker. It's getting quieter. Only the monotonous hum of the engines and the endless black expanse of the ocean below. Around midnight, radio communication deteriorates. A hum of interference, distorted voices, as if someone is whispering from afar. The radio operator makes a note, communication unstable. Switching to the backup channel. But even the backup channel doesn't help. The pilot's voice comes through occasionally, Star Tiger course stable, expect descent, then, noise again. Seconds, minutes, silence. Closer to morning, the plane should have entered the Bermuda radio zone. But there is no signal. The operators call it on all frequencies, Star Tiger, respond. Are you receiving? Nothing. Absolute silence. An hour later, the control tower declares an alert. British and American services join the search. First, reconnaissance planes, then ships. A gigantic operation begins over the ocean. More than 20 aircraft and 10 ships comb the supposed route. They are looking for anything, a piece of wreckage, a trace of fuel, a life raft. But the ocean is as calm as glass. No signs of a catastrophe. The pilots who participated in the search later said, "We saw the sun rise over the Atlantic. The sky was perfectly clear, without a cloud. But below, nothing. Not a strip of oil, no floating objects. It was as if the plane had simply disappeared." One of the commanders of the rescue group wrote in his log, "If the plane had crashed, we would have found at least part of a wing, the fuselage, seats. But the ocean is clean. Strange. Very strange." The British press exploded. Where is Star Tiger? Disappeared without a trace over the ocean. The Bermuda Triangle claims another victim. It all looked too symbolic, a night flight, strong wind, silence, and a disappearance without a single trace. People began to talk about magnetic anomalies, about time warps, about holes in space that planes are drawn into. The airline tried to maintain its composure. The official version, loss of orientation due to weather conditions. But even the experts couldn't understand how an experienced pilot could get lost in clear weather. A few weeks later, the investigation was concluded. The commission's conclusion sounded hollow, the cause is unknown. The aircraft disappeared in normal weather conditions. No traces were found. And it was then that for the first time in official documents the phrase appeared, "This is one of the most mysterious disappearances in the history of aviation." From that moment, the name, Star Tiger, became a symbol of horror. People whispered, "It didn't crash, it was taken." Gates open in the Bermuda Triangle. They fly there, and don't come back. This story gave rise to dozens of rumors, theories, and conjectures. But the most terrible thing was yet to come. Exactly 1 year later, almost to the day, another plane from the same company took off over the same waters. And the same thing happened to it. January 1949. Exactly 1 year had passed since the Star Tiger disappeared into the abyss. The world had almost forgotten about that tragedy, almost. But fate seemed to decide to remind them that the mystery of the Atlantic does not let go. January 17, morning. At the Kindley Field Aerodrome in Bermuda, there is a buzz of activity. The weather is perfect. The sun is shining, the temperature is comfortable, the sea, as smooth as a mirror. The pilots are smiling, it couldn't be a better day. On the concrete runway, the Star Ariel aircraft is preparing for takeoff, the same type as the Star Tiger. The same operator, British South American Airways. Irony? Coincidence? Or something much more sinister? The commander of the aircraft, Captain John McPhee. Cool-headed, experienced, disciplined. He served in the Royal Air Force, went through wars and storms, knew every detail of his aircraft. Next to him, the second soul of the liner, radio operator Francis Sisson, a joker, the crew's favorite. He always said, "Communication is our life. As long as we are in contact, everything is under control." He does not yet know how terrifying these words will sound in an hour. On board, 20 people. The passengers are boarding calmly, businessmen, officers, a few tourists, even a priest. No one is rushing, no one is worried. Many had already heard the story of the Star Tiger, but now, a sunny day, no storms, no clouds. "We'll be lucky," smiles one of the passengers. The captain closes the door, gives the signal, ready for takeoff. The engines come to life. The metal fuselage trembles, and the liner smoothly rolls down the runway. 9:42 a.m. Star Ariel lifts off the ground. The coast rapidly shrinks below, and all around, a dazzlingly blue sky. Everything is going perfectly. 10 minutes after takeoff, McPhee makes contact, Star Ariel reporting, course to Kingston, Jamaica. Weather clear, visibility excellent. Altitude, 18,000 feet. The controller confirms, "Roger, Star Ariel. Have a good flight." Everyone is calm. No alarms, no problems. It is quiet in the cockpit, only the soft hum of the engines. But after half an hour, something changes. The radio operator reports, requesting to switch to another frequency for communication with Kingston. The controller replies, "Roger. Let me know when you establish the channel." The minutes tick by. There is no answer. The controller repeats the call, "Star Ariel, do you copy?" Silence. Another 10 minutes pass. "Star Ariel, respond." Again, nothing. No distress signals, no reports of problems, no signs that the aircraft was in any way damaged. Just a disappearance. Instantaneous, inexplicable, as if it had been erased from the air. At first, the controllers think it is a radio communication failure. But by 10:40 it becomes clear, Star Ariel is not making contact. The alarm is raised. Rescue planes take off from Bermuda. They follow the same route, combing the air meter by meter. But where the Star Ariel should have been, there is only sky and ocean. No signs. No smoke. No fuel slicks. No flashes on the horizon. Just emptiness. The commander of the search squadron later wrote in his report, "We were flying in perfect visibility. 300 miles over the ocean, not a cloud. If the plane had crashed, we would have found something. But there was nothing there. As if it had dissolved in the air." This shocked everyone. How could a huge airliner disappear, in clear weather, with all equipment in perfect order, with an experienced crew, and stable communication? A few days later, the search was called off. A commission gathered in London. The report was dry. The cause of the disappearance is unknown. Communication was lost suddenly. No traces of an accident have been found. But behind the official words, panic was hiding. In private conversations, engineers admitted, there were no malfunctions with the aircraft. Everything was working perfectly. One of the RAF officers in Bermuda said a phrase that became legendary: "This place, it takes planes, as if it swallows them." Now the similarity became frightening. Star Tiger disappeared in bad weather, Star Ariel, in perfect weather. The time difference, almost exactly 1 year. The same route. The same company. The same result, not a trace. The newspapers went crazy again. The Bermuda Triangle strikes again. Invisible force over the ocean. The planes that don't arrive. People started to be afraid to fly through this area. Pilots refused to take flights, and passengers returned their tickets, even losing money. Rumors multiplied. It was said that there is an electromagnetic hole in the Atlantic that can turn off instruments and engines. Someone claimed it was military experiments, secret radio waves creating invisible domes. But there were others, who spoke quietly, almost in a whisper: maybe this place is alive. Maybe it feels. Many years have passed. But neither the wreckage of the Star Ariel nor its crew have ever been found. Both planes, like two silhouettes that dissolved in a mirror. Two identical fates, two identical tragedies, linking one place, the most mysterious point on the world map. It was after these two disappearances that journalists first began to use the expression, the Bermuda Triangle. Thus was born the myth that lives on to this day. But what really happened to the Star Tiger and the Star Ariel? What is this section of the ocean hiding? Mysticism? A conspiracy? Or has science simply not yet had time to explain what nature devised millions of years ago? After the disappearance of Star Tiger and Star Ariel, a shadow of fear hung over the Bermuda Triangle. People no longer looked at the ocean with the same eyes. It seemed that somewhere beneath that serene surface lived something ancient, cold, and incomprehensible. Journalists and radio hosts of that time competed to come up with the most terrifying version of what was happening. Gates to other dimensions. U.S. Navy experiments. Cosmic visitors collecting people. Does it sound fantastic? But in the late 40s, this was taken seriously. The first to appear was the magnetic anomaly hypothesis. Scientists noticed that it was in the Bermuda region that the compass needle sometimes deviated wildly. Pilots said the compass was pointing north, but not the one on the map. We were flying where we didn't intend to. This place is truly unusual. The Earth's magnetic field lines converge there, a real energy vortex. If a plane got into this magnetic trap, navigation instruments could fail, and the crew, without noticing, would go off course by hundreds of kilometers. But here's the mystery: even if the planes went off course, why wasn't at least some wreckage found? Then came the methane bubbles theory. Scientists suggested that giant accumulations of gas, methane, are hidden at the bottom of the ocean. When it suddenly rises to the surface, the water loses its density, and everything on it instantly sinks, as if falling into a void. A ship? It would disappear in seconds. A low-flying plane? It would lose lift and crash. Yes, it sounds like science fiction. But laboratory experiments have shown that methane is indeed capable of creating such effects. However, this theory does not explain why no one saw any flashes, why no traces of fuel were found, and why the disappearance occurred without a distress signal. Then it was the turn of temporal anomalies. Scientists, and then science fiction writers, suggested that rifts in time and space are possible in this area. Strong magnetic fields, the Earth's rotation, underwater volcanoes, all this can create zones where the laws of physics change. Maybe Star Tiger and Star Ariel didn't just crash, but slipped through a thin crack between worlds. They didn't disappear, but slipped away somewhere where time flows differently. One writer even put forward a gruesome idea: perhaps the crews are still flying, where the night never ends. Where the radio signal is forever frozen in the ether. Chills down your spine. But there were even bolder theories: extraterrestrial. Many claim to have seen strange lights in the sky over the Bermuda Triangle. Glowing spheres, flashes, as if someone was turning on searchlights from under the water. An American pilot said in an interview in 1950, "I was on course from Miami to Nassau, and suddenly a bright sphere appeared on the horizon. It was moving against the wind. The instruments went crazy, the needles froze. A minute later, the light disappeared, and everything started working again." What was it? A plasma formation? Or is someone really watching us from there, from the depths where the darkness is thicker than night itself? Some researchers believe that the Bermuda Triangle is part of an ancient system left by a long-lost civilization. The Atlanteans. Yes, it was they who were called the architects of the energy gates. According to old legends, Atlantis was located right here. And when it went underwater, some of its mechanisms, force fields, crystals, installations, continued to work. What if the planes are simply entering an area where the machines of Atlantis are still activated from time to time? What if this triangle is not a curse, but simply a malfunction of ancient technology? However, not everyone sought answers in mysticism. There were also skeptics. They said, all these disappearances can be explained simply: human error, weather failures, technical malfunctions. But how to explain the coincidences? Two identical machines, one company, the difference, exactly 1 year, and not a trace. Too many coincidences to just wave it away. And then the most frightening version appeared, the echo effect of the triangle. Astrophysicists put forward the idea that in some points of the planet, electromagnetic fields can create something like a mirror. Waves, radio signals, sounds, even particles, are reflected, creating the effect of disappearance. That is, the object does not disappear, but for the observer, it becomes invisible. It seems to be stuck between the layers of the atmosphere and the magnetic field. And until this echo dome dissipates, the object is not visible and cannot be detected by radar. Maybe this is exactly what happened to Star Ariel and Star Tiger. They were there, right over the ocean, but no one saw them because the light and radio waves were simply reflected back. Each new theory gave rise to even more questions. Why do some planes fly through the triangle safely, while others disappear without a trace? Why do the instruments fail only at certain points? Why has not a single body, not a single piece of wreckage, surfaced after decades? The Bermuda Triangle seems to laugh at our attempts to understand it. It neither refutes nor confirms anything. It is simply waiting for new victims. One researcher once said, "The Bermuda Triangle is not a place. It is a state. It is a moment when reality fails." And maybe he's right. Maybe it is there, where the ocean, the sky, and fear meet, that something is born that science is not yet able to explain. For many years, the Bermuda Triangle was considered a zone where the laws of nature collapsed. Where ships, airplanes, and common sense vanish. But science doesn't like mysticism. It likes numbers, logic, and cold, hard facts. Scientists decided it was time to figure it out. No rumors, no guesses, no legends. And what they discovered turned out to be no less frightening than tales of aliens. First, the researchers gathered all the data, maps of disappearances, weather reports, radio communications, everything that had anything to do with the Bermuda Triangle. And suddenly, a shocking result. It turned out that the number of disasters in this area does not exceed the global average. That is, no more planes and ships disappear here than in any other part of the ocean. The triangle simply became a legend. Due to coincidences, newspaper sensations, and scary stories that people told each other for many years. But something is happening, you ask. Yes. It is. And the explanation for it is much more real than it seems. The main reason is the human factor. The Bermuda Triangle is one of the busiest places on the planet. Thousands of ships and planes cross this area every day. The more traffic, the more accidents. Simple arithmetic, not witchcraft. And yet, it's not that simple. Scientists from the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration conducted a series of unique experiments. They lowered research probes to the very bottom of the Bermuda Shelf, measured the pressure, temperature, and composition of the water. And they found something unusual. In some areas, at a depth of several kilometers, the water is literally boiling with methane bubbles. Yes, the very same methane that science fiction writers talked about. When the underwater pressure increases, the gas erupts to the surface. At that moment, the density of the water drops sharply, and any ship, even a giant liner, instantly loses buoyancy and sinks. Without screams, without a distress signal, without a trace. And what about the airplanes? If methane enters the atmosphere, it can temporarily create a misty veil capable of disrupting visibility and causing instrument failure. The pilot loses orientation, and disaster is inevitable. But there are other forces at work. Hydrologists pointed out that the Bermuda Triangle lies in the path of the Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current that moves at speeds of up to 5 miles per hour. It can instantly carry the wreckage of a ship for hundreds of miles. That's why search parties often found nothing, the traces disappeared faster than they could begin to search. And what about the planes? The atmosphere above the Gulf Stream is unstable, sudden updrafts, microstorms, vortexes. Pilots in the 1940s had no radar or precise navigation systems. To get caught in such a vortex meant to disappear forever. Modern meteorologists added another touch: rogue waves and unexpected severe storms often arise in this area. They rise in a matter of minutes, without warning, due to the temperature difference between layers of air. Such storms can tear a plane apart in the air or capsize a ship before the crew has time to realize what is happening. And yet, even with all these facts, there remains something in the Bermuda Triangle that science cannot measure with instruments: human fear. Even the scientists who worked there admitted, at night, the ocean behaves strangely. Quiet, too quiet. And only the waves whisper, as if someone underwater is waiting. Watching. Listening. Psychologists explain this simply: our brain is inclined to look for patterns even in chaos. When a plane disappears, we look for meaning. We cannot accept that it was all decided by coincidence, a mistake, a storm. We need an enemy. A mystery. Mysticism. That is why the Bermuda Triangle lives on. It is fed not by storms, not by currents, but by our imagination. And yet, science has not been able to close the case on some facts. Some disappearances remain without a trace, without explanation, without clues, without logic. Perhaps the problem is not in the ocean, but in ourselves. In our desire to look where the human mind loses its balance. Because, as one oceanographer said, the deeper we go into the ocean, the more we feel that it is looking back at us. The ocean is calm again. No storm, no wind. Only the even breath of the water, eternal, cold, indifferent. But somewhere out there, beneath this mirror of darkness, their names still lie. Star Tiger. Star Ariel. Two shadows that dissolved into the silence. So many years have passed. The world has changed, satellites, radar, and digital maps of the oceans have appeared. But even today, when scientists look at the coordinates of those disappearances, a strange feeling comes over them, as if there, where those planes vanished, something we don't understand still lies open. Not a portal. Not a curse. But a void. One that swallows not bodies, but explanations. Aviation historians still argue about what happened to the crews of the Star Tiger and Star Ariel. Some are certain, a navigational error, a storm; others, a magnetic anomaly. But not a single version answers the main question: why did no one see anything? Why was there no distress signal? Why weren't even fuel slicks found? An old sailor once told a journalist, "The triangle doesn't kill, it calls." He said that every disappearance is an invitation. An invitation to step into a place where man ceases to be the master of his own fate. Maybe he was crazy. Or maybe he knew something we have forgotten. Scientists, philosophers, writers, they all tried to tame this mystery. Some drew charts of currents, others mapped magnetic fields, and still others wrote of ancient civilizations and cosmic gates. But maybe the whole point is something else. Maybe the Bermuda Triangle isn't a place on a map, but a mirror. A mirror in which we see our own fear of the unknown. A person flies over the ocean. Below him, kilometers of darkness; above him, the eternal sky. He is a tiny spark between two abysses. And when technology fails, when the wind roars, he feels how fragile the line is between life and the void. In that moment, everything we call the world dissolves. All that remains is the roar, the trembling, and the fear. There it is, the real triangle, inside us. Night falls quickly over the Atlantic. Pilots of modern flights, passing through that very same area, sometimes say they feel a strange pressure in the air. The instruments behave perfectly, but it's as if their hearts skip a beat. And someone whispers in their headphones, "Don't look down." Sometimes a brief shadow appears on the radar, for a second, no more. A phantom. A contact with no call sign, no number, no signal. Then, silence. Technology writes it off as interference. But maybe, it's just them. Star Tiger. Star Ariel. Two machines, two ghosts of the sky, two voices from the past. Maybe they are still out there somewhere, in an invisible vortex of time, in the cold layers between storms, flying and unable to return. And everyone who enters this triangle, for a moment, feels their presence. As if the air remembers. As if the sky itself preserves their route. Sometimes it seems that the ocean isn't just water. It is the planet's memory. It forgets no one. And when the waves quietly roll ashore, perhaps those are their footsteps. The steps of those who once left, and never returned. So what is the Bermuda Triangle? An anomaly? A coincidence? A legend? Probably all of the above. A place where science meets mysticism, where man first understands that not everything on this earth can be measured by instruments. And if one day, flying over this part of the ocean, you look out the window and see a flash of light, remember, maybe it's not lightning. Maybe it's just a greeting from the past. That very moment when the Star Tiger and Star Ariel are still on their course. Eternally, endlessly, in a sky where time has stopped.